The autumn sunlight streamed through the tall, arched windows of the grand Thornridge estate, casting golden patterns across the marble floor. A delicate china cup steamed in her hands, its floral pattern matching the gentle pink blush creeping across Elora Winter's cheeks. She had chosen a quiet corner of the estate's sprawling conservatory, hoping to enjoy her tea alone, a rare moment of peace. But peace was a luxury in Thornridge, especially when the Alpha King's family was involved. Elora had only been at the estate for 2 weeks, visiting under the guise of a friend's invitation. She had expected polite conversation and small smiles, not the piercing, magnetic eyes of the Alpha King, or his mother's scheming whispers. "Elara, my dear," a smooth, commanding voice echoed from behind the tall ferns. Elara turned to see Lady Seraphina Thornridge, the Alpha King's mother, gliding toward her, an expression of calculated warmth painted across her flawless face. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Elara forced a polite smile. "Not at all, Lady Seraphina. I was just enjoying the tea." Lady Seraphina's eyes gleamed with a mix of mischief and calculation. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that made Elara's heart skip a beat. "Pretend you're my son's fiancée." Elora nearly choked on her tea. "Excuse me." The woman leaned even closer, her perfume enveloping Elara in a dizzying swirl of jasmine and musk. "You heard me. The Alpha King has complications, and you, my dear, might just be the perfect solution." Elora's mind raced. Had the Alpha King Thornridge's notorious heir, whose name alone sent ripples of fear and desire through the supernatural world? And she, a simple woman, barely aware of the intricate politics of werewolf hierarchy, suddenly being asked to play fiancé in a dangerous game. "I can't," Elora stammered, but Lady Seraphina's fingers gently pressed against her hand, a gesture that was both comforting and commanding. "Think carefully, darling. One smile, one whispered word, and you could gain protection. Prestige, perhaps even something more." Her eyes softened for a fraction of a second, and then the steel returned. But refuse and she let the threat hang in the air. Unspoken but chilling, Elara looked down at her teacup, the steam curling like ghostly tendrils. Her life had been ordinary, safe, predictable, and yet here she was, being thrust into the orbit of a man whose very existence exuded power and danger. Somewhere in the estate, the Alpha King himself was waiting. A man whose anger was legendary, whose presence alone could silence a room, and whose gaze Elora shivered at the thought. Lady Seraphina's voice pulled her back. "I only ask for a favor, Elara. One evening, one dinner. Pretend. That's all. You'll have no obligation beyond the night unless, of course, the king takes a liking to you." Elara's pulse quickened at the thought. The king takes a liking, that she swallowed hard. The idea was intoxicating, terrifying, and irresistible all at once. Before she could respond, Lady Seraphina's lips curved into a knowing smile, and she drifted away, leaving Elara alone with her racing thoughts, her untouched tea, and the echo of a whispered command that could change her life forever. Little did Elara know, the Alpha King had already sensed her presence in the conservatory, his piercing gaze hidden in the shadows, studying her every movement. And when their paths inevitably collided, nothing in Thornridge or in her heart would ever be the same. The Grand Thornridge dining hall was a cathedral of opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars, casting shards of light over polished oak floors. Elara adjusted her posture as she followed Lady Seraphina through the hall, her heart hammering with every step. "This way, my dear," Lady Seraphina said, her voice smooth but edged with urgency. "He is expecting you, but do not be afraid. A smile and confidence will serve you well." Elara nodded, gripping the folds of her dress as if it could anchor her courage. Her mind raced. What did it mean to pretend to be the fiancé of ours the Alpha King? Thornridge had whispered legends of him through hushed corridors. The man whose strength could crush mountains, whose temper could bend wills, and whose gaze could strip a person bare body and soul. And now she was stepping into his world. The double doors at the end of the hall swung open, and the air shifted. A silence fell over the room, like the world had paused to witness his presence. There he was, Cale Thornridge, the Alpha King. He moved with the predatory grace of a wolf, every step deliberate, every motion commanding attention. His dark hair framed a chiseled face, his piercing amber eyes locking onto Elara instantly. The effect was electric, her skin tingled, and for a heartbeat, the world faded around them. Kyle's lips curled in a faint knowing smile, as though he had already unraveled the puzzle of her heart. "So this is the girl who has captured my mother's attention," he said, his voice deep, smooth, and impossible to ignore. Elara swallowed hard. "Ah, yes. It's an honor to meet you, Your Majesty." she managed, her voice trembling slightly. Kyle's eyes narrowed slightly, studying her. Every fiber of his being radiated power, dominance and danger. And yet there was something else there. Curiosity, intrigue, an unspoken challenge. "My mother has suggested," Alara began, but Kyle interrupted with a tilt of his head, his gaze intense. "She has suggested, yes," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the marble floors. Alara nodded, her throat dry. "If it will help, I will." A faint smirk touched Kyle's lips. Bold, brave, or foolish. Time will tell. He stepped closer, and with every movement Alara felt the gravity of his presence. The air between them crackled, a dangerous, thrilling tension. For the first time, Alara noticed the subtle signs of his wolf nature, the way his senses seemed sharper, the way his body exuded latent strength, the slight twitch of his jaw as if he were ready to pounce. Kyle Thornridge was not just a man, he was a force of nature. And now, she was standing in the eye of the storm. Lady Seraphina cleared her throat. "Dinner will begin shortly. Kyle, my dear, do try to make her feel comfortable." Kyle's amber eyes flicked to his mother, then back to Alara. For a moment, the predatory edge softened, replaced by something unreadable. Then, with a tilt of his head, he spoke directly to her. "Follow me." Alara's pulse raced. She had expected a challenge, a test, but what she had not expected was the magnetic pull she felt toward this man. Every instinct screamed both danger and desire. As she walked beside him, their steps in perfect sync, she realized that pretending to be his fiancée would be far more complicated than a single evening of dinner. In Kyle's world, every glance, every word, and every touch carried weight. And soon, very soon, she would learn that even pretending could be perilous, especially when hearts were involved. The dining hall was a masterpiece of luxury, its long table gleaming under the warm glow of chandelier lights. Candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the intricate tapestries that lined the walls. Alara's hands trembled slightly as she followed Kyle to their seats. Every eye in the room seemed to glance toward them, whispering silently of intrigue and speculation. Kyle sat with perfect composure, his posture regal and commanding. When he gestured for her to sit beside him, Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. She obeyed, her pulse quickening at the closeness of his presence. The scent of his cologne, or perhaps something more primal, wafted toward her, intoxicating and dangerous. Lady Seraphina took her own seat across from them, her gaze sharp and calculating, as if she were orchestrating a delicate game of chess. "I trust you both will enjoy the evening," she said smoothly, though her eyes glimmered with unspoken schemes. The first course arrived, delicate smoked salmon garnished with herbs and lemon zest. Conversation flowed around the table, polite but measured, yet Kyle remained silent, his amber eyes locked on Alara. The weight of his gaze made her feel exposed, as if he could see her very thoughts. "Do you enjoy tea, Alara?" Kyle finally asked, his voice low, smooth, and undeniably magnetic. She nodded. "Yes, very much. Though I must admit, this dinner is far more grand than anything I've experienced before." A faint smirk played at the corner of his lips. "Everything here is larger than life," he said. "The Thornridge estate is not for the faint of heart, nor for the timid of spirit." Alara felt a flicker of courage. I think I might like that." Kyle's eyes narrowed, studying her. "You are bold, aren't you? Most would falter under the scrutiny of this table, yet you do not." The air between them crackled, charged with an energy that was at once dangerous and thrilling. Every gesture, every glance seemed to carry unspoken meaning. Alara realized with a sudden jolt that pretending to be his fiancée was no longer just a favor to his mother. It was a test of her courage, her composure, and perhaps even her heart. As the main course was served, roast venison with a delicate mushroom sauce, Lady Seraphina leaned toward Kyle, her voice a subtle whisper meant only for him. "Observe her," she murmured. "See how she reacts. She may be more than she seems." Kyle's amber eyes flicked to Alara again, and for a heartbeat, a shadow of a smile touched his lips. There was a spark there, a silent acknowledgement of the tension building between them. Alara, meanwhile, was acutely aware of every movement he made. When his fingers brushed against hers accidentally as they reached for the same dish, her skin tingled. She quickly pulled back, but the electricity lingered, a tangible force neither could deny. The conversation shifted to matters of the estate, alliances, and whispered secrets of the supernatural world. Kyle's voice was calm, commanding, yet there was a dangerous undercurrent in every word, a reminder that he was the Alpha King, and every decision, every glance, carried weight. By the time dessert was served, a rich chocolate torte with hints of wild berries, Alara realized that the evening had changed her. She had walked into the Thornridge estate hoping for a quiet moment of tea, yet now she was entangled in a web of intrigue, desire, and danger, and the center of it all was Cale Thornridge. And Kyle, he had already decided that Alara was no ordinary woman. There was something about her bravery, her spark, and perhaps the hint of defiance in her eyes that intrigued him, challenged him, and unsettled him in ways he had not felt in decades. The Alpha King's heart, long guarded and untouchable, was beginning to stir, and Alara, completely unaware of the storm she had walked into, was about to find herself drawn ever deeper into a world of passion, peril, and secrets that could change both their lives forever. The dining hall had begun to empty, leaving only a few lingering guests and the soft hum of the chandelier lights above. Alara felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. She had survived the formal dinner without faltering, but the weight of Kyle's presence pressed on her like a living thing. "Walk with me," Kyle said suddenly, his voice low and commanding. Alara blinked, startled, but nodded. Together they stepped into the moonlit terrace that overlooked the sprawling Thornridge gardens. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of jasmine and the faint promise of rain. Kyle stopped, his amber eyes locking onto hers. The distance between them seemed to shrink with every heartbeat. "You are not like the others," he said quietly, his gaze intense, almost piercing. "Most would be trembling in my presence. Most would falter, cower, yet you face me without fear." Alara swallowed hard, feeling the pull of his presence. I just try to do what's right," she admitted, "even if I don't understand it all." Kyle's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. "Bravery can be admirable or foolish. Perhaps it is both in your case." The sound of distant wings flapping drew her attention for a moment, but when she looked back, Cale had stepped closer. Too close. Her heart raced as she felt the heat radiating from him, the subtle dominance in his stance, the raw power in his gaze. "You are pretending," he murmured, his voice rougher now. "Pretending to be my fiancée. But I wonder how long you can maintain the act before the truth shows in your eyes." Alara's pulse thundered in her chest. I don't know," she whispered, caught between fear and fascination. I'll do my best." Kyle studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, with a sudden shift, his demeanor softened, not much but enough to send a shiver down her spine. "Do you understand what you're stepping into?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "This world, my world, it is not kind to the unprepared." Alara nodded, though inwardly she trembled. I think I do. I want to try anyway." A silence fell over them, charged and electric. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the distant howls of wolves, a reminder of Kyle's power, of the primal world he ruled. And then, as if drawn together by an invisible force, Kyle's hand brushed against hers. It was a fleeting touch, almost accidental, but it ignited something deep within her. Kyle's amber eyes darkened, and for the first time, Alara saw a glimpse of the wolf beneath the king, the predator, the protector, the man who could devour or defend with equal ferocity. "You intrigue me, Alara," he said quietly. "More than I thought possible," her breath caught. "I intrigue you." He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "Yes, bold, clever, unafraid, and yet there is something fragile in you, something worth protecting." The words sent a strange warmth through her chest. She had expected danger, manipulation, perhaps even fear, but not this, not the pull, the intensity, the undeniable magnetism of the Alpha King himself. Before she could respond, the distant echo of footsteps snapped them back to reality. Lady Seraphina appeared at the terrace entrance, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "The evening is not yet over," she said smoothly, "and my son is clearly interested." Kyle's gaze flicked to his mother, then back to Alara, and for the first time, a shadow of amusement crossed his features. "Indeed," he murmured, a low rumble in his chest that sent shivers through her. Alara realized, with both excitement and terror, that she was now fully entwined in a world of power, passion and peril. Pretending was no longer a simple act. It was a dangerous game, and Kyle Thornridge, the Alpha King, was already proving that winning his heart came with a risk she had never imagined. The moon hung low over Thornridge Estate, casting silver light across the gardens. Alara wandered along the stone path, the cool night air brushing against her skin. Her mind replayed the events of dinner, the weight of Kyle's gaze, the subtle brush of his hand, the unspoken challenge lingering in his amber eyes. She had never met anyone like him. Powerful, commanding, yet with an undercurrent of something primal and intoxicating. Every instinct screamed caution, yet every heartbeat drew her closer to him. as if the universe itself had conspired to bind their fates. A sudden rustle in the bushes startled her. Before she could react, Kyle emerged from the shadows, moving with silent, predatory grace. His presence was overwhelming, and the moonlight caught the sharp angles of his face, the fire in his amber eyes glowing like molten gold. "You shouldn't be wandering alone," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "This world, my world, is not safe for ordinary humans." Elara met his gaze, her own fear tempered by a strange surge of courage. "I'm not ordinary," she said softly. The words surprised even her. "And I'm not afraid." Kyle studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he closed the distance between them. The air between them crackled with tension, charged with an energy that was at once dangerous and irresistible. "You are bold," he murmured, his voice rougher now. "And I cannot ignore that." Elara's breath caught as he reached out, his fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. The touch was electric, sending a thrill through her body that was equal parts fear and desire. She wanted to pull away, to retreat, but a part of her ached to stay, to feel more of this intensity that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Kyle leaned closer, the scent of his cologne. Or was it something more primal, filling her senses? "Do you understand what it means to be near me?" he asked quietly. "To stand beside the Alpha King?" "I think I do," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It means danger and passion and—" She trailed off, realizing her words could not capture the storm raging between them. He tilted his head, amber eyes narrowing. "And what, Elara?" She swallowed hard, her gaze locked on his. "And something I cannot resist." Kyle's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. "Good," he murmured, "because you will need all your courage in the days to come." The tension between them grew unbearable, charged with unspoken desire. Then, as if drawn by a force neither could control, Kyle's hand found hers. This time the touch was intentional, possessive, yet tender. A contradiction that made Elara's heart race. "You intrigue me," he whispered, his voice a low rumble that resonated deep within her chest. "More than I've allowed myself to admit in decades." Elara felt her own pulse quicken, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. She was lost in the depth of his gaze, in the raw magnetism that radiated from him, in the dangerous, thrilling intimacy that hovered between them like a living thing. For the first time, she understood that pretending to be his fiancée was no longer a simple act. It was a game with stakes higher than she had ever imagined. And Keel Thornridge, the Alpha King, the predator, the man who could consume her with a single glance, was already claiming pieces of her heart she hadn't known were his to take. The night stretched before them, thick with possibility and peril. And in that moment, Elara knew one undeniable truth: nothing in her life would ever be ordinary again. The Thornridge estate was quiet now, the guests long gone, leaving only the whispers of the night and the distant howl of wolves in the forest beyond. Elara's footsteps echoed softly in the hallway as she made her way toward the conservatory, where she had promised herself a moment of solitude. But solitude was a fleeting illusion. Alone again. Kyle's voice cut through the silence, low and dangerous, as he stepped from the shadows. His presence was magnetic, suffocating, commanding. The moonlight highlighted the sharp angles of his face and the powerful lines of his physique. Every movement radiated controlled dominance and the subtle hint of a predator ready to strike. Elara's breath hitched. I just wanted a moment," she whispered. Kyle's amber eyes studied her, unblinking, assessing. "A moment is a luxury you cannot afford in my world," he said, stepping closer. "You are here, in the heart of my estate, pretending to be something you are not. Courage or recklessness, I cannot yet tell." She squared her shoulders, refusing to retreat. "I can handle it," she said firmly. "I'm not as fragile as you seem to think." A faint, dangerous smile curved Kyle's lips.
"Oh, I do not underestimate you, Elara."
"I see the spark, the defiance. But bravery alone is not enough in my world." He moved closer still, the scent of him earthy, primal, intoxicating, filling her senses. The space between them crackled with an energy that was impossible to ignore. She could feel the power emanating from him, the subtle aura of his wolf nature, and the raw intensity that accompanied it. "I need to know," Kyle whispered, his voice dropping to a low, intimate rumble. "If you are truly prepared to face the dangers of my life, of my world." Elara's heart pounded. "I am," she breathed, though uncertainty and fear churned within her. Kyle's gaze softened just enough to give her hope, but the edge of the alpha remained. "Then come with me," he commanded, his hand brushing hers once more, lingering just long enough to send a shiver through her. "We will test your courage and your heart." without waiting for a reply. He led her through the winding halls of the estate, out into the dense forest that bordered Thornridge. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting silvery patterns on the forest floor. The scent of damp earth and wild foliage surrounded them, and the distant howls of the pack echoed in the night. Cale stopped in a small clearing, his eyes glowing faintly amber in the moonlight, locked onto hers. "Tonight you will see my world," he said, "and you will prove that you are capable of surviving it." Suddenly, the air shifted. From the shadows, figures emerged, members of Kyle's pack, their eyes gleaming with curiosity and caution. Elara's pulse raced, but Kyle's presence at her side was grounding, a tether in a world that had suddenly become raw, primal, and dangerous. "You will face them," Cale said quietly, his hand brushing hers in a brief, possessive touch. "Not as my fiancée, but as someone who might one day stand beside me. Do you understand?" Elara nodded, her courage firming. "I understand." The pack moved closer, circling her cautiously. Kyle's wolf growl resonated through the clearing, a warning and a declaration of his dominance. Elara realized then that her world had shifted irrevocably. Pretending was no longer safe. Every glance, every breath, every heartbeat mattered, and Cale Thornridge, the Alpha King, the Predator, the man who could destroy or protect with a single decision, was watching her, testing her, drawing her closer in ways she could neither resist nor fully comprehend. As the pack encircled them, and the tension in the clearing became almost unbearable, Cale leaned close, his lips brushing against her ear. "Do not fear, Elara," he whispered. "Trust me, and perhaps you will survive the night and discover the strength within yourself you never knew existed." Her breath caught. In that moment, she knew that nothing, neither danger, nor desire, nor destiny, would ever be the same again. The forest clearing was bathed in silver moonlight, shadows twisting between the trees as the pack circled closer. Elara's heart pounded, but she forced herself to stand tall, her hands trembling only slightly. She could feel Cale behind her, the heat of his body grounding her, and the subtle, steady beat of his wolf heartbeat echoing against her own. "Do not move unless I command it," Cale murmured, his breath warm against her ear. His amber eyes glinted in the moonlight, a predator watching his prey but not in malice. In fascination, in challenge. Elara nodded. She could feel the pack's piercing gazes on her, their senses testing hers, their instincts probing for weakness. But she remembered Kyle's words, courage and trust. Her life, or at least her heart, depended on both tonight. A low growl rumbled through the clearing as one of the younger wolves approached. Its teeth glinted, and its stance was aggressive. Elara froze, instinct screaming at her to flee, but she forced herself to meet its gaze calmly. Slowly, she extended a hand, not to touch, but to demonstrate her awareness of its power. Kyle's hand lightly brushed hers, a reassuring, almost possessive touch. "Steady," he whispered. "You are stronger than you think. Show them that you belong here, if only for tonight." The wolf's growl softened as it sniffed the air around her. The tension in its body eased, then it stepped back, giving her a careful, grudging respect. One by one, the other members of the pack assessed her. Each time, Kyle's gaze never left her, sharp and evaluative, yet strangely approving. By the time the final wolf circled and nodded almost imperceptibly, Elara realized she had survived. Not unscathed, her nerves were frayed, her heart racing, but she had proven herself in Cale's world. Kyle stepped forward, his presence overwhelming and magnetic. He closed the distance between them, his fingers brushing hers again, holding them with a firm but gentle grip. "You have done well," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. "Brave, clever, and unafraid. I did not expect this."
"Yet here you are!"
Elara swallowed, her chest tightening. I wanted to prove it," she admitted. "Not just for you, but for myself." Kyle's amber eyes softened, just slightly, and he reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered against her cheek, warm and strong. The air between them was thick with tension, dangerous, thrilling, and impossibly intimate. "You are remarkable," he murmured, stepping so close that she could feel the heat of his body radiating toward hers. "And foolish, but that is part of what draws me to you." Elara's breath hitched. "Draws you?" she whispered. Kyle's gaze darkened with a primal intensity.
"Yes,"
he said, his voice low, intoxicating. "I do not allow anyone to enter my world, not so completely. And yet you have. You intrigue me, Elara, more than I've allowed myself to admit in decades." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant howl of wolves in the forest. The tension was unbearable, charged with raw energy, desire, and something neither of them could fully name. Then, slowly, almost deliberately, Cale closed the last of the distance between them. His lips brushed hers, not a kiss but a test, a spark, a challenge. Elara's breath caught as heat and desire surged through her. The touch was electric, setting fire to every nerve, igniting a storm she had no intention of taming. Cale pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, his expression unreadable, yet his voice trembled with a dangerous, thrilling intensity. This is only the beginning," he said. "If you survive me, if you survive my world, perhaps then you will understand what it means to truly stand beside the Alpha King." Elara's pulse raced. I want to," she whispered. "I want to understand." Cale's lips curved into a slow, almost feral smile. He murmured, "Because once we step forward, there will be no turning back." The night stretched before them, full of danger, desire, and secrets yet to be revealed. And in that moment, Elara knew with a fierce, terrifying certainty that her life, her heart, and her very soul were bound to Kyle Thornridge. "Perfect! Let's continue with." The forest clearing had quieted, but the tension between Elara and Kyle still thrummed like a living thing. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth, and the distant howls of the pack reminded her of the wild world she had entered. Kyle's amber eyes, usually controlled and calculating, were now stormy with an emotion she couldn't yet name. He stared into the distance, jaw tight, lips pressed in a thin line. "There's something you need to know," he said finally, his voice low and rough. "Something about my past and about what it means to be an alpha." Elara frowned, curiosity and concern mixing in her chest. "What is it?" Kyle took a deep breath, his gaze darkening. "I have enemies," he admitted, old rivals, those who would do anything to see the Thornridge pack fall. "And my mother, she has always had to protect me. She sees threats before they come, and she will do anything to ensure my survival, even if it means dragging someone into my world who would otherwise have no part of it." Elara's pulse quickened. "Enemies? You mean like pack wars?" Carl's eyes softened, but only slightly. "Worse," he murmured. "There are those who would kill for power, for vengeance, for territory. And now you are here. You are in my world. And because of that, you are in danger." Her heart skipped a beat. She had known the Thornridge estate was powerful, that Cale was dangerous, but the thought of real, life-threatening danger made her stomach twist. Yet beneath the fear, there was a strange exhilaration, a thrill that pulled her closer to him. Cal stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers, possessive and protective. "I will not allow anyone to harm you," he said, voice low, almost feral. "Do you understand? You are mine to protect whether you want it or not." Elara's breath caught at his words. "Yours to protect," she whispered, her pulse racing. "Yes," Cale said, amber eyes burning into hers. "I do not make empty promises. You have proven yourself brave tonight, but my world is unforgiving, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe." The intensity of his gaze, the raw power he radiated, made her knees weak. She had entered his world pretending to be someone she was not, and now she realized that the lines between pretense and reality were dangerously blurred. "Cale," she began, her voice trembling, "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this." He shook his head, stepping even closer, so close that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "No one is ever ready," he murmured, his lips dangerously near hers. "But you are here. You are brave, and you have something inside you, something worth protecting." Elara's heart raced as she felt his hand lightly cup her cheek. His thumb brushed against her skin, sending shivers down her spine. I want to try," she whispered. Carl's expression softened just enough to reveal the man beneath the alpha, the man capable of tenderness, of care, of desire. Then, without warning, he leaned down, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both possessive and intoxicating. It was a kiss that spoke of danger, of longing, and of promises yet to be tested. When he finally pulled back, their foreheads resting together, Kyle's amber eyes bore into hers. "You are bound to me now, Elara," he said quietly, "and I will not let anything threaten what is ours, not my enemies, not my world, not even fate itself." Elara's pulse raced, her breath coming in shallow bursts. She had stepped into a world of danger, desire, and secrets, and yet, despite everything, she knew she had never felt more alive. The moonlight shimmered across the clearing, casting silver patterns on the ground, and in that moment, Elara understood a truth she could not ignore. She had been claimed, not just by Kyle's world, but by Cale himself. And nothing, not darkness, not danger, not the shadows of the past, would ever separate them again. The morning sun filtered through the tall Thornridge windows, casting long beams of light across the estate. Elara had barely slept, her mind still swirling with the intensity of the previous night, the kiss, the words, the undeniable heat that had passed between her and Kyle. Yet danger never waited for a convenient moment. A sudden commotion in the courtyard drew her attention. Elara's pulse quickened as she stepped closer to the window. Shadows moved unnaturally fast, and the unmistakable scent of rival werewolves, or worse, filled the crisp morning air. Before she could react, Kyle appeared at her side, his presence immediate, protective, and overwhelming. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice low and lethal, eyes scanning the threat beyond the walls. "Do not come out. You are mine to protect." Elara's breath caught, torn between fear and the magnetic pull she felt toward him. I can help," she insisted, though the words trembled. Kyle's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, then hardened. "No," he said firmly. "This world is dangerous, Elara. You have to trust me." She nodded, swallowing hard as he moved like a shadow, every step fluid, predatory, controlled. The tension in the courtyard escalated as rival wolves approached, their eyes gleaming with malice and intent. Kyle's voice cut through the air, commanding and authoritative. "You dare trespass on Thornridge soil," he growled. His amber eyes blazed with raw power, and the ground seemed to tremble with the force of his presence. The intruders faltered, sensing the dominance radiating from him. But this was no ordinary warning. They had come for blood, for territory, and Kyle's pack. Elara watched in awe and fear as he transformed, the powerful, muscular form of a wolf emerging seamlessly. His eyes still burning amber, his presence both terrifying and mesmerizing. He moved with lethal precision, a storm of strength and authority. The rival wolves hesitated, circling, testing him, yet they were no match for the Alpha King. "Kale," Elara whispered, her heart hammering. "Be careful." He glanced back, just for a moment, his gaze meeting hers. There was an unspoken promise in that look, a vow that he would return to her, that he would protect her at all costs. Then, with a roar that shook the very air, he struck, moving with devastating speed and precision, forcing the intruders back, one by one. Elara's breath caught as she saw him in action, the raw power, the feral intensity, and yet the calculated control. He was magnificent, terrifying, and utterly mesmerizing. Her heart raced not just with fear, but with desire, admiration, and a growing need to be near him, to touch him, to feel the protection and passion radiating from every fiber of his being. The fight was brief but decisive. The intruders fled, vanishing into the forest, leaving only the echo of Kyle's dominance and the scent of danger lingering in the air. When he finally returned to her side, transforming back into his human form, Elara felt a wave of relief and longing crash over her. He was breathtaking, powerful, untamed, and utterly magnetic. "You were incredible," she breathed, her voice trembling. Kyle's amber eyes softened, but the intensity never left them. He stepped close, his hand lightly brushing hers. "This world will test you, Elara," he said, his voice low, rough with emotion. "And I will protect you, but I cannot protect you from your own heart." Her chest heaved as she met his gaze, understanding the weight of his words. Fear, danger, desire, and something deeper, love, perhaps, swirled between them. Kyle leaned down, capturing her lips in a kiss that was fierce, tender, and all-consuming. It spoke of dominance, protection, passion, and promise. It was a kiss that left her breathless, her body alight with desire, and her heart irrevocably bound to him. When they finally parted, Kyle rested his forehead against hers, amber eyes gleaming with intensity. "You survived your first test," he murmured, "but many more await. Are you ready to face them with me?" Elara's hands gripped his chest, feeling the steady, powerful rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her palms. I am," she whispered, her voice trembling with both fear and longing. "With you." Kyle's lips curved into a slow, feral smile. "Good," he murmured, "because once you step fully into my world, there is no turning back." The morning sun rose higher, casting golden light over the estate. But for Elara and Kale, the day had already begun, with danger, desire, and a bond forged in fire and moonlight. Perfect. Let's continue with where Elara fully embraces Kyle's world, secrets are revealed, and their romantic tension reaches a cinematic, heart-stopping peak. Embracing the Alpha's world. Night fell over the Thornridge estate like a velvet curtain, the moonlight illuminating the sprawling gardens and the dark silhouette of the surrounding forest. Elara stood at the edge of the terrace, the cool breeze playing with her hair, her mind still racing from the events of the day. Kale appeared silently beside her, his presence immediate and overwhelming. The forest beyond the estate whispered with the faint, distant howls of his pack, a constant reminder of the power and danger that was now entwined with her life. "You did well today," Kale murmured, his voice low and intimate. Not just surviving, but showing courage, intelligence, heart. Elora looked at him, her chest rising and falling with both anticipation and exhaustion. I had you with me, she whispered. I wouldn't have survived without you. Kyle's amber eyes softened, just slightly, but the intensity never left them. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering on her cheek. No, he said quietly. You would have survived because you are stronger than you know. I only guided you, protected you. But strength and bravery, that is yours. Elara's pulse quickened as the words sank in. For the first time she felt like more than a guest in his world, more than a pretender. She was a part of it, and a part of him. Kyle's gaze darkened, filled with a dangerous magnetic intensity. He stepped closer, the heat of his body radiating toward hers. And yet, he murmured, voice rough with desire, there is still much for you to learn about my world, about me, and about yourself. Elora's breath hitched as his hand moved to her waist, drawing her close. I want to learn, she whispered, her lips barely brushing his. I want to be with you to understand everything. A slow, feral smile curved Kale's lips. Good, he murmured. Because once you embrace my world, there is no turning back. No safety, no retreat, only the fire between us and the danger that follows. Elara's heartbeat raced as he leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss that was at once possessive, tender, and consuming. It was a kiss that spoke of power and protection, of desire and promise, of a bond forged in danger and trust. When they finally parted, their foreheads resting together, Kale's eyes bore into hers. You are mine, Elara, he said softly, and I will fight for you, protect you, and claim you in every way this world allows. Her hands found his chest, feeling the steady, powerful rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her palms. And I am yours, she whispered, completely. The moonlight shimmered across the terrace, casting silver patterns on the stone, but it was the fire between them that lit the night. In that moment, Elara realized that she had not just survived Kyle's world, she had embraced it, claimed it, and in doing so, had found a passion, a power, and a love that would forever change her life. Kale pulled her close again, his lips brushing hers in a promise, a challenge, a declaration. Together, he murmured, we will face whatever comes. Together nothing and no one can break us. Elora's heart swelled with a fierce, undeniable certainty. She was no longer just a visitor in his world. She was a part of it, bound to the Alpha King, and ready to face the storms, the danger, and the undeniable fire that existed between them. The night stretched before them, full of possibility, peril, and passion. And for the first time, Elara knew she had found her place, by Kale's side, in the Thornridge estate, and in the heart of a love as wild, untamed, and powerful as the Alpha King himself.